Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of VCT Scoped In with myself, Will Cho. I'm one of the casters and analysts here at VCT Pacific, and I want to take some extra time to look at some of the plays that our teams have made here in Pacific each week. Now, Super Week just ended, and I'll be honest, during the live show, I thought I would have so many clips to look at, which I did, and I thought I noted them well, which I didn't. And so, because it's way too much to get through, what we've decided is to actually take a look at one of the teams that have made playoffs and that has so many fans rooting them to go to Masters Tokyo. It's going to be ZETA Division. Now, ZETA Division, one of the things that we've talked about on the live show as well as many other analysts around the world, is that they tend to play a little too slow, a little too scared, and run the clock down a bit too much with false assumptions. This is something that we've been hoping to see them fix, and I think we're on a good upward trend. But what really supports that, I believe, is actually the strength they're starting to show in their skirmishes. So something we'll look at today is going to be some of the util usage coming up from Laz, who is now the main initiator and main IGL for ZETA Division, how that translates into some of the skirmishes and set plays that we've seen from ZETA Division, and then around where we're actually seeing that they do have a better understanding of the timing, even though it doesn't exactly end as planned. So let's dive right in. We're going to see, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to take a look at 4 different uses of guiding lights coming out from Laz. Of course, Laz always has been the leader of ZETA Division, but also we found out coming into Pacific, he's now been given the primary IGL position and then now moving on to that initiator role. Now, the guiding light is an interesting tool because it is a flash that can be controlled, has long distance, and it gives you info, right? It gives you passive info on whether or not there are enemies where you pop the flash. Now, because of that, it's very important on the way you angle the flash, right? So for instance, if you pop it like down here and someone's hiding behind C-Mound, you wouldn't get the tag. There's things like that, right? There's these very interesting ways to use this. And of course, ever since the flash changes, the quick pop flash right on the corner, not as strong. So take a look at this first round. Now, this is a pistol round. ZETA's been doing their typical, kind of bounce back and forth scenario here, which that, again, I do think is getting a lot better. And now they're looking at a 4v5. They've already decided, you can tell that they eventually want to go back to C because of the movement we're seeing at 44 seconds here. And we have Saya player waiting here for a potential rotate. I mean, T1 knows that ZETA Division, they could always rotate again. So Saya will get the first kill here. He actually gets down to Sugar Zero. And look at that fake. It's so perfectly played where it's like, I mean, Saya was gonna lose this duel no matter what. So the guiding light comes in and it's being turned around. And at this point, because it did not flash initially, you're thinking, okay, they're filling up the meter, right? Whenever you use a guiding light, there's this meter, and after a certain point, it turns into a full flash. You see it going, and Saya holds. He's like, okay, they're probably charging the meter if they're going that deep. It's probably also to check this corner. There's multiple reasons why this would do it. And Saya holds for a second, and as soon as it hits the corner, he swings away. But at that exact moment, they just swing. And then on top of that, here's something interesting. You're going to see Saya swing, and when he comes back, Depp has now swung, right, to take advantage of this fake out. But then take a look at the bird. They pop it as well. So he hasn't let go. So what this does is, in the case Saya had, tried to anti-flash earlier, or he just said, I'm just going to bunker down no matter what, and Saya was just looking at Depp, and in the case Depp dies, Laz will then get a full flash. So this is a guiding light that absolutely guarantees that you should always, at the very least, get the trade and be able to push through. Okay, now we skip over to round 5. Now this one was like a straight up fake, but just the way it was maneuvered was quite cool and quite funny watching the stream. It's nothing too crazy if you've watched a lot of Sky players or if you play a lot of Sky, but I think it just goes to show, before we play it out, I think it just goes to show the comfort that Laz is starting to show on the Sky. So, ZETA Division, they are looking to pressure C-Mound. Very rarely will that ever lead to a C push, right? It's always just trying to vie for position. But they're going to send the Trailblazer first. And I actually don't mind because you've seen a lot of people actually stand right where Carpe is, right behind these boxes, right? Or we've seen players now trying to hide behind the mound to set up for some sort of play over by C main. So using the Trailblazer first to just get sight of how many people there might be, right? And you can tell they're trying to do that because they're trying to jump right over the mound here. He will actually spot Saya right away, and then instantly the counter Trailblazer used just to potentially let Saya escape. Now watch the guiding light come out. But once again, this is multi-layered, okay? Once again, we see it being thrown in a way where it can fill the charge. The other thing is Laz was waiting. Okay, Laz pulls out his flash and then starts to shoot right as the rest of his team is in position. You've already got one person under mound. Let's take a deeper look at the minimap. So with the Trailblazer, you planted Dep right behind mound. Now Dep tries to peek, realize he's spotted, and that's when the guiding light comes out, right? It's timed in a way where you can try to peek out. Now, originally, probably, if the Trailblazer didn't jump coming out from Carpe, probably Dep would have continued swinging as the guiding light was flying through, and then if Dep dies, someone else might have traded. Maybe Dep was a little early, but either way, the guiding light once again nosedives, because here's the thing, you're either turning away or you're sticking the fight. And then if you're sticking the fight, you saw Dep here earlier, so you got to be concerned about left side, right side, top of mound. There's just so many places you have to look, and then you have to worry about the timing of the flash. So Saya this time decides, okay, that's just too much. He's trying to walk back into the smoke. He dies right at the end of it. But again, you can say, well, it's just another fake, but it's two very different ways to use the guiding light. Now let's take a look at round 8. And this time, it's not going to be a fake guiding light. But again, it just shows really good understanding from Laz on what he wants to do with the guiding light. And I think also just good habits that he has so that he can set up these fakes in other skirmishes. So they are attacking over to A. And we want to take a look at the early guiding light coming out from Laz, which is going to go right towards A main. Right there. So they want to send this out right away to gain info. And what they're trying to gain info on is basically this entire area, right? And potentially anyone peeking out from here, right? So I'll draw it on the mini map here. But they basically want this and then this. Actually, that's in addition, right? So I guess we should erase that. What they want is actually all of this, like probably at I don't know the exact angle that's going to catch people at, but basically they want to see if anyone's crossed over. They want to see if anyone's hiding right by the tiny door, and then if anyone's peeking out over from the site. And so the guiding light goes out. First of all, he does a U-turn again, and there's multiple layers to this, but for one, it's to try to ensure that if anyone is standing, like, let's say, well, that's not a good arrow, but let's say someone's standing like right here, right? So if you let go of it while it flies forward for a bit longer, then they would only get half flash without having to anti-flash, right? But given the distance, maybe you wanted to make sure you fill the gauge. So for one, by putting it right up against the wall, unless they're right below it because it was thrown pretty high, you are guaranteeing that they would have to anti-flash one way or the other. The other thing it does is now, whenever you do throw your flashes around walls and U-turn, there is the threat that it's not a fake. So this is a two-layered thing that Laz has now just built into his habits, where he's going to make it rotate, hit the wall, and then pop to ensure better angles across the board, and then to always condition them that this U-turn is happening no matter what. This does not signify whether it's a fake or not. And then we're going to see that again in another round. So now ZETA Division is on defense. and we're looking at round 15, and there's 2 guiding lights being used here. But again, really good understanding from Laz on what the mission is with his guiding lights. Let's take a look. Right off the bat, we're going to see a guiding light go all the way around rubble, and that's going to allow Sugar Zero to move forward with the shadow step. And then we're going to see another guiding light come out towards the entrance of A, so that the remaining members can either swing around and check or push forward. So they fly it out, it's going to curve around the corner, and it pops right at the edge of that corner. Now, if someone had jumped all the way forward, no, they will not be full flashed, but Sugar Zero is not going on top of rubble, he's just going behind. So all they really need to do is check if someone is there or not. The mission of this guiding light is just to make sure if they know, is someone either, well, all the way through, or like right up to here, right? Like this little Tetris block. That's all they want to know. So instead of taking the risk of like trying to pop flashes right as it exits rubble and maybe missing that angle or something like that, he just sends it all the way through and pops it. Now, nobody does get tagged on the side of T1, so Sugar Zero is able to swing around safely. Now, because of that, and because of T1's Poison Cloud, they're able to set up Dep close as well. And then now, with this Poison Cloud, to make sure Sugar Zero can peek out again, we see another guiding light coming out, right? It's flying right next to Dep, and it's going to do a little U-turn flash. Okay, so the guiding light exit, it's going to pop here in a second, but it U-turns right up against the step on rubble. And basically it's checking, is anyone hiding behind the Poison Cloud? Is there a risk that someone could be hiding behind it, the Poison Cloud lowers, and Sugar Zero gets taken out? And then Sugar Zero currently only has, I think he's peeking slightly out, but he's trying to check this angle, but he cannot look through the Poison Cloud. So this flash guarantees, okay, no one's there. I mean, there might be people here. ZETA has no idea if that's true or not, but the goal of that guiding light is just so they can plant their teammates in position, in a forward position here. And that allows Sugar Zero to peek out a little bit safer. And then Laz says, okay, well, our positioning is done over here on A. I'm going to exit. So we just take a look at a couple of their guiding lights coming out from Laz. Now, while that was very focused on Laz and his, usage of the Sky Util, I think it continues to go to show that ZETA is really learning what their util means and how it can lead to better fights. And I actually noticed this towards the beginning of Pacific as well. ZETA was having some really good retake set plays being planned out. Their utilities chaining was getting a lot better. And their understanding of which corners to check for each other was getting a lot better as well. And this is another round where it shows that good example. Now, we are looking at the first round of the second half, where ZETA Division is on defense. They have already stacked heavy onto C, and they simply left Crow alone with the Killjoy utility to check for info on A. Now, he was checking further forward before, but eventually, I forget if he caught sight or if he heard audio, but either way, he's going to slowly back out, and he goes all the way up into A heaven. So Crow is taking a safe but not completely free position, right? He's not giving up all of this for free. He's at an angle where he can check if anyone's going to cross this way, and so they can check drop. But he is making sure he doesn't get picked off and peeked at for free. So T1 alarm bot activates. Now they know that alarm bot does force Crow to back out just a bit more until his teammates arrive. But because of the high tide, he tries to go forward. He says, okay, I can't. I'm just going to play it safe. Now, let's play this at half speed. I love half speed. Everything half speed. We see a nanoswarm being thrown as the Trailblazer is getting ready. So the nanoswarm is thrown. We see the ping as well, so clearly this was a practice thing. The nanoswarm is meant to make sure no one can stand under hut. So now this is erased. Meanwhile, the Trailblazer is going to continue moving forward. The Trailblazer jumps, checks left side right next to the boxes first. Doesn't see anyone. It already has caught sight of Saya, who now has to move out of hut because of the nanoswarm. And then because the Trailblazer catches sight of at least Saya, the paranoia which was planned is used all the way in from stairs. So now you know, or let me erase this. But their skill utility has basically erased this part of the map and this part of the map, right? I'll leave the paranoia icon there just so we can see it. So they know they can drop down from heaven. The paranoia actually hits Saya. The Trailblazer stays alive because Saya's backed out. And then you see Zeta trying to use his own cascade just to protect themselves a bit, but the Trailblazer is pushed out far enough. Now, they don't know about the entire stair situation, but that alone allows Depp and Crow to have dropped into safety onto the site. Now, you know, this round actually ends up getting a little bit close, but Sugar Zero gets some sick right clicks on the Classic, and ZETA Division will be able to win the round. But the way that they understand we can't just like jump in, we're not just relying on our aim, etc., but the way they're chaining their abilities, right? The Nano Swarm first, and then the Trailblazer, and that's pushing them out. So then use the Paranoia so that you can get even more vision with the Trailblazer. This step-by-step process is a huge improvement for ZETA Division, and we've been seeing more of it during this entire season. Now, I want to take a look at one more round from ZETA Division's Lotus here. Now, this is still back on attack, so we rewind a little bit. It's on round 7. Now, this is a round where ZETA Division sets themselves up for a potential rotate and does it in a relatively timely manner. They even have okay post-plant positioning, but, well, we'll look at the ending. So at 133, ZETA Division this time, they contest for A main first, right? They've backed out of C main. We're actually going to see 10 survive that op. And because of that op, we immediately see 10 rotate over to B. Now, there's a turret here on B as well. So 10 just trying to make sure that he can get into pillars. So he's just holding on to see if anyone pushes up further from here and hoping that the turret will spot anything and everything if the op continues to chase. So that has already bought time, or potential rather, to go into B. Meanwhile, because during all the skirmishes over on A, Depp has positioned by Tiny Door as well. During this time, they've already activated the rotating door once to see what the util setup is here. And that tells them that there is a one-way poison cloud by the rotating door. So now they wait for a bit, see if there's any peek outs. They won't see anyone. Guiding light comes out as well, so they just drew out another flash. Meanwhile, Cascade being used has been communicated over to their team, and the High Tide comes out again, right for the rotating door. So, look at the plan. Already the plan is, let's smoke this off. So this smoke already indicating that there is an idea here to go into B. And then they use the rotating door right away, but they send the boom bot in, okay? So they're trying to sell that there is pressure onto A despite the smoke that they put up themselves. Trailblazer also going into rotating door. So they're creating a lot of noise where you can't, even if you think it's a fake, you cannot entirely empty out A. And during that timing, the goal is to go into tiny door. Now, T1 does read this, right? The Trailblazer, as we can see on the screen, immediately jumps towards Raze because they're like, well, what if this is a rotate? And they heard the door breaking as well. So the stun goes through, and this slows it down a tad bit, which maybe that is what actually snowballs into the round win for T1. But either way, opens up the site, sends out the showstopper. Now the lockdown will come in from Munchkin, and immediately Depp reacts as well. Now look at the positioning. They still keep last by a Rebel. So there was always an option to either support Depp, who was trying to get into, a link right here. You can either support from there, or if Depp survives, one of you guys can eventually rotate into stairs. Now, this was, again, before the lockdown goes down. Now that the lockdown goes down, the rest of the team is going to exit as Depp tries to get rid of the lockdown, and he will succeed. Laz is still by A. And even in B main, you've got your own lockdown being used here, and then you get out of the enemy's lockdown positioning for the time being, and then they'll reposition to spread out. It's not a bad position. Honestly, it's not a bad position up to this point. You've got two people by door. You got one person who's trying to rotate back out towards B main. You've still got Laz over by A main as well. 10 trades for depth. It's not looking so bad. But then this happens.
Oh, with the collapse through the door, he picks up 3. The one.
I mean, that's just... Honestly, it wasn't so bad. But let's just go back and look at this. When exactly does the spike get planted? 30 seconds. It's not bad. For ZETA Division, not bad at all. And here's the thing is that if the Trailblazers didn't bite them, this probably would have been at 40 seconds. So it's a very reasonable execute. It's a very reasonable execute time. And hey, that's because, again, you started rotating earlier. What if you rotated at 20 seconds? If the Trailblazer bit you, you wouldn't get the plant. But anyway, so a much improved timing here from ZETA Division. And I honestly do believe this has been in an upwards trend. And I would hope to see that in playoffs as well. Well, that was a quick and brief look at ZETA Division. Of course, the improvements they have made, there's way more to go through. I think there's much more macro level stuff going on. And I think individually, actually, while we highlighted last today, I think Depp has been really growing into his own role as a superstar duelist and entry player for this team, and the other members as well. I mean, they've all been improving, which is why they were able to secure their own spot into playoffs here at VCT Pacific. So, if you're hoping to see the last remaining Japanese representative go to Masters Tokyo and play in front of their home crowd, continue to take a closer look at the improvements, at the skirmishes, the util usage, and hopefully, eventually all of that leading to better time usage in their future matches in the playoffs. And maybe, just maybe, we will see ZETA Division try to make history once again. That's it for this week's VCT Pacific Scoped In. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, like the video, leave a comment down below for what you like to see from ZETA Division or the rest of VCT Pacific playoffs. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next week.